Hi everyone, Jane here. Thank you so much for watching today and welcome to everybody. Today I decided I wanted to make something fairly quick and easy because it is so hot here at the moment that it sort of zaps all your energy and you don't really feel like doing anything too sort of complicated. So I decided to go in with my favourite sketchbook, which is the Canson art book. This is the 300 GSM Saunders Waterford paper in it. It's cold pressed, and it's 100% cotton. And this is the landscape version of the A5 book, but I like to turn it up this way. So I decided to get out some paints that I hadn't really played with very much, and this is the Derwent set of pastel colours. And I bought this one quite a while ago because I don't really have many pastel colours, and probably the reason I didn't have very many pastel colours is because I don't really use pastel colours. I don't think that much, although I have been sort of swaying more towards them in more recent times. So I think I was heavily influenced by the weather at the moment, and so I started off with these very warm colours from this set. So I will list the products that I've used in the description box below. I don't add links because a lot of products that I use are based in the UK, or they might not be available any longer because I continue to use my products long after they may be retired or the company may no longer exist, because that's what I'm sure all of you are also doing. So I will list what I've used, but if you have similar, or you don't even have to have similar, you could do this project in any colorway that you choose with any products that you choose. So I started off by adding a lot of water to the paper. I don't really know how these paints act very much because I hardly ever use them. So I went with what I thought was the darkest colour in the middle and then worked my way out, although I ended up adding in some different bits and pieces as I went. I wasn't sticking exactly to it, but I was getting a sort of sun vibe from what I was laying down. So I just kept on going with that until I was happy. I then let it dry naturally. And then I thought, as we're going with that sun vibe and the warmth, we'll get out this stencil from Tim Holtz. It's called Rays. It's THS003, I do believe. But again, I will list that in the description box. And I decided to use some distress inks, which I don't use that much anymore. I used to use distress inks a lot more than I do now. But sometimes it's nice to get a really gentle, sort of delicate way of adding your stenciling with distress inks. I'm trying to think of what a paint can be quite bold. Well, it doesn't have to be, depends on the colour, but it is a much thicker application, whereas the inks are translucent, so you still feel that you're getting that background shining through. Now, I didn't use the stencil exactly as it is on the actual piece. I decided I wanted to try and create a whole sunburst all the way around my sunshine. So I just used little bits and I turned my stencil as needed. And the colours I'm using are worn lipstick. That's what threw me, because I always use picked raspberry, and then as I was about to say it, I realised that I didn't use picked raspberry. I used worn lipstick, which is again a colour I don't use that often, and mustard seed, which is a colour I use very often. It's probably the only yellow from the Tim Holtz distress. Well, a fossilized amber, which is sort of like a yellowy orange, and I do like wild honey, which again goes towards orange. I find the squeezed lemonade very, very pale, so I don't tend to use it very much. So this is my most used yellow from the range. And then I was adding the pink nearer the middle and the yellow nearer the edge, and then blending them together so that I got an orangey tone in the middle. So you don't need every single colour of ink and paint, when you're doing things like this, because you can blend the colours together. And then, like here, where I had a gap, I just went back in with the stencil. And that's the lovely thing about stencils, is because they've got that translucent quality, you can go back in and just go in areas where you may have missed. So once that was done, I decided I did want to add some stamping, but I didn't want to go mad with it. I didn't want it to be too bold. So I found this stamp set that I've had in my collection for a while. This is by Phil Martin at Sentimentally Yours, and it's called Notebook Textures from the Notebook Botanicals collection. And I'm going in with archival inks this time that match the colours that are already in the page. So they're not the exact same ones, but they, you know, I chose a pink and a yellow and an orange. So the colours this time are Kitsch Flamingo, again one I don't use very often, that's the pink, Fossilized Amber and Wild Honey. So the ones I've mentioned before really. And I'm just going in with some really delicate little stamps here, and they're all circles. I thought because I've got that sunshine vibe and it's that circle of the sun, I wanted a little bit of circles, but I don't want them to be too bold. I just want them to add a little bit of extra texture, because this whole page is all in one layer, as in there's nothing being stuck on, it's all just going directly onto the page. So not, I was going to say totally 2D, but nothing's totally 2D, because of course you've got some dimension to it, but I didn't want to be sticking things on. I decided that I wanted to make this as simple as possible. So once I'd added on the little dotty ones, I found this circle one excuse me, which is with the, I'm adding on with the darkest colour. I tend to add my biggest, or the stamp that I want to add last, I'd use the boldest colour. So I start with the lighter colour and build up, and that way you have a bit more control over what you're doing. And once I'd put those circles down, I knew that they had to be coloured in. Now, I got the water in the brush because I was getting out a water-based pen, but actually when I coloured them in, I decided I didn't need to water them out, so I didn't. I just went straight in with a pen. Now, this is a brush marker, and it's from the HunkyDory Prism pens, and they don't have colour names, it just has a number. It's 016, and I just went in and coloured in the circles. Didn't worry too much else about it, and then didn't worry about watering it out either. Then I was deciding what I wanted to do, and I thought it needs a bit of gold. It's sunshine, you know, golden sunshine. So this is the Kuretake Mica ink, and it's in a Fineliner bottle for ease of application. So I was giving it a good shake, because when you leave it, it does separate into the pigment and the binder. So you do need to give it a good old shake. And then I was just testing it, and it did come out a little bit. So I just had another little test. And then I just wanted something quite simple. I didn't want to go too mad with this. So I went round and round and round to make this the circle. And then I added some little dots onto the circle as little extra bits. Then once I'd done that, I thought, actually, I want to extend this gold out just so it's not all in one place. So I went into some of the rays and just added some lines just to extend that gold out into the rest of the page. Now I did have to leave that to dry for a while, because it's not going to dry instantly, especially in the thicker areas. And in the meantime, I was looking for a sentiment, and I looked through a lot of my sentiments, and then I remembered that I had this stamp set which I designed for Cleverprints called Celestial Sentiments, and it has Shine Bright on it. Unfortunately, these are no longer available because that company now is no longer trading. But I wanted to add a bit into the background, so I went with the same colours that I'd used for the previous stamping. Again, building from the lighter to the darker, so that I knew how it was going to look. Because if you put the light colour down and then you go, oh, that didn't really work, it's not going to be so much of a big deal. Then I decided I wanted to go really bold, because I felt it did need something to really stand out against that background. So I'm going in with the Archival Jet Black, and I put one stamp down. I was going to leave it at that, and then I thought, oh, actually, I think it needs more. So I just repeated it 2 more times to create a little cluster of stamping there. So that's the end of this project. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, do please give this video a thumbs up. Comments, hypes, likes, and then subscribes if you think this is content you would enjoy, are all really help smaller channels to get seen better. across YouTube. At the end of the video, you will also see a list of the lovely members of my YouTube channel. These are my super supporters, so a big extra shout out to them and a big thanks for their extra support. Thank you ever so much for watching today, and until the next time, bye bye.